Hello and welcome to all that are attending. My name is Rachel Starbuck and I will be your webinar host today. So we're expecting the presentation to last around 45 minutes, followed by a question and answers session. Please note that we'll be muting the telephone lines during the webinar, except for the speakers. So if you have any questions, please submit them using the question tool on the screen. So that's either the question and answers widget on the bottom, or please use the top left-hand box. So we'll be collating all the questions at the end, and we look forward to answering as many as possible. We'll also be providing written responses to all the delegates. And following the presentation, we'll be posting a copy of the web recording from the session onto the Prism ID website. So today's guest speakers are Craig Jones and Steve Ellison from Prism ID. So the key topics of today's webinar are global labelling landscape, challenges and evolution of language labelling, how to effectively manage global labelling, and outcomes of latest technology language labelling. So without too much further ado, please let me hand you over to Steve Ellison.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We're here to take a look at the complexities of today's landscape for medical device, pharmaceutical and clinical trials organizations. This includes global manufacturing and distribution and also multi-site label management activities. Labeling activities at each of these sites may fall under multiple internal or external quality standards and regulations. As in the complexity of the third party or OEM manufacturer, for the total landscape of labeling increases the additional risk and effort. The landscape is varied in terms of the systems and processes employed in designing, populating and printing of the labels. The labeling output required for each industry can vary but share a number of common requirements. These typically boil down to one or more single panel labels accompanied by a multi-page document. So for med device, the labeling requirements will comprise of one or more of the following: a single panel label for the inner and outer product packaging, patient labels, shipper labels, plus any country specific labeling applies through distribution. Also, we have direct part marking, which is becoming a commonplace process to certain types of device. We also have multi-page documents, for example, the instruction for use booklet, a certificate of conformity, or a warranty card. For clinical trials organizations, they have their own labeling challenges, both single panel and high-cost multi-page booklet labels. These labels often have the added complexity of randomized and blinded data. In the pharmaceutical market, they're more focused on high-volume pre-printed content with overcoding during the manufacturing process. Lost my place, here we go. The labeling outputs for this industry tend to be more artwork driven, with a batch number or lot number printed onto the product. While these outputs may seem diverse at first glance, they all share a number of fundamental requirements, which include both single-page and multi-page outputs, the need to address local labeling requirements for the destination countries, third-party involvement for manufacturing and or labeling activities, control of source data and identifying the single source of truth for the label content, rigorous quality control throughout the end-to-end labeling process, and the regulation and guidelines from bodies such as the FDA and European Commission. So that's an overview, and I'll hand you over to Craig Jones, who will discuss the complexities of the supply chain.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. The purpose of the supply chain is to generate value in the form of products that are delivered to the final customer. The supply chain is ultimately a network of interdependent companies that exist to manufacture, package and distribute the right quantity of the right product at the right time to the right customer, while reducing costs and maintaining or increasing quality. At a high level, products flow from suppliers, manufacturing, packaging, storage and distribution before arriving with the customer. With the additional complexities associated with product relabels, additional labelling local language and regulatory requirements, it is easy to see how complexity builds up within the downstream supply chain. At each point in the process, there is a single element that is responsible for keeping the products flowing: the label. The label plays a critical part in the supply chain, right from the suppliers through production and logistics through to the customers. At its most basic form, the dictionary definition of a label is a piece of paper, card, or other material attached to an object to identify it or give instructions concerning its ownership, use, nature, destination, etc. However, what does this really mean when labelling something of significance such as a medical device, a clinical trial, or a pharmaceutical? Incorrect labels for most products would have had little effect in our everyday lives. However, in healthcare, information given by a manufacturer on a label could at best cause discomfort or at worst, serious harm or even death. Being in control of the final content of the label is no longer a nice to have, it's an absolute must have. This is why we have regulatory authorities. Let's take a look at the evolution of regulation to understand why this common requirement can add so much complexity to the labelling process. The FDA has established itself as the authority across the globe when it comes to regulation for healthcare. So, to illustrate the point, I'll twist some very old and often misquoted data about how regulation gains in complexity over time. This slide has been used many times to illustrate how wordy the fictitious EU directive of the sale of cabbage was. This illustrates precisely how involved and complex existing legislation governing the use of computer systems when labelling product has become. The recent FDA UDI regulation dwarfing the 26,000 words attributed to the imaginary EU directive. This regulatory complexity means that companies looking to succeed in a global marketplace must take steps to ensure the integrity of their supply chain from suppliers to customers and all the steps in between.
Okay, so right, it's now time for our first poll question that will be running in today's session. So please select the answer that is relevant to you and then click on submit. So for the first question, where do you see the most of your labelling errors originating from? So we have human error, defective label or insert, wrong data on label or insert, print quality issues, wrong label or insert being used, or a change in regulatory rules. So please select the answer that is relevant to you and then click on submit. We will give you a few more seconds to do so and then look at the results. Okay then, so let's take a look at the results. Okay, so can you comment on these results for me, please?
Excellent. So very interesting there. Yeah, human error coming out as the top results in terms of label error origination. I think very much in line with a number of projects we've recently delivered, and actually overcoming that challenge is something we often do for our clients, where we impose verification steps to ensure that that right label has been applied to that right product at the right time before it's shipped. So it'd be interesting to speak to those who have voted for human error after the webinar. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Okay, we'll continue now. And the next slide is top industry challenges. And this is industry challenges in the life science market, so not particular markets or sectors, but generally. The first one we're going to look at is language management. And as companies seek to leverage existing products in new markets or look to extend product ranges in existing geographies, the requirements to ensure that your package is accessible to the population in that market has become increasingly important. Sourcing, recording, controlling, designing and using language-specific information is now critical to accessing a number of emerging markets, whether they are manufactured locally or imported to that geography. The next challenge is country-specific regulations. Maintaining up-to-date information on the latest country-specific requirements and ensuring these requirements are met by labelled products without duplication of effort and information is a sizable task. The next challenge is multiple page label content. Single panel label design has been pretty well catered for over the years. But when it comes to multiple page labels or inserts, there is additional complexity. The output needed to be generated for layout as well as printing. There are multiple checks throughout this process and implications in terms of content required for specific countries. Clearly, translation management is paramount and how the country-specific elements are controlled and managed efficiently. A solution that can design an insert with country-specific content and output this as a print-ready artwork can offer considerable cost savings. The total cost of translating, procuring, storing, transporting, and ultimately the disposal of paper booklets or inserts that are most part not referred to when the product is used can be a significant operational cost. Therefore, by moving to a just-in-time production method of creating specific language inserts is compelling as it offers time saving and considerable cost saving. E-labelling initiatives are offering the opportunity to remove massive amounts of paper from the packaging process without increasing liabilities. The opportunity to create content just in time for electronic distribution, as well as paper-based versions, is now becoming a reality. The next challenge is the latest regulations. The regulatory landscape means organisations have to adhere to both complementary and conflicting standards. Identifying and meeting these standards can be an impact on the entire supply chain. A good example of this is the adoption of GS1 or HIBIC barcodes, or the use of 2D barcodes. The next area for challenges is duplicate quality checks. Throughout the process of identifying where improvements could be made, the issue of duplicate quality checks was ever present. There were varying degrees of checks dependent upon the process and procedures followed by an organisation. But what was common that there appeared to be opportunities in most operations to remove duplicate checks. One area that could be highlighted is that of the duplicate translation of the same phrase time and time again, and the transfer of checked data into new systems using cut and paste, and then the need to recheck that data again. The next area of challenge we're going to look at is consolidation. Where an organisation has expanded organically and has acquired many systems across disparate facilities, that requires multiple vendors with different responsibilities and different service level agreements. There exists a compelling opportunity to standardise and consolidate operations in order to drive operational savings through the business. Choosing a platform that supports global deployment, single harmonised process, yet retains the ability to meet local requirements is paramount if these business savings are to be realised. And the opposite of consolidation is expansion. Wherever companies wish to exploit the opportunity offered by expansion of product ranges, introduction to new geographies, leverage the benefits of mergers and acquisitions, or increase manufacturing to 24/7, or to change to meet the new raft of import restrictions, these will all have a consequential impact to packaging and label operations. Being able to swiftly adapt to a changing business model is vital consideration for any label lifecycle management system. Next, we look at master data management. Identifying the single source of truth for labeling activities. Does this data come from the ERP, PLM, or other external systems, or should this data be managed entirely within the system? And finally, the last one we have is label defect control. Even where each part of the process has been subject to incessant review and approval cycles, where the production process has been mostly automated to reduce human error, and we've seen that back in our recent survey, defects that were registered in supplier stock, printer malfunctions or print irregularities still occur. Typically, these inconsistencies are addressed by adding a layer of human visual inspection against the master label documents at various parts of the packaging and labelling process. While this represents a rapid method to address label defects, typical success rates for visual inspection of labels on a fast-moving production line are low at best. Being able to leverage the intelligence of label design, the data structure, and machine inspection, which is mounted on print devices so that any label printed can be forensically analysed as they're produced. This critically allows operators to remove failed labels before they are applied to products to ensure that label defects become less and less likely in your operation. So during these recent customer communications, all our discussions confirm that a platform that could support the business through these issues, meet the complexity of the supply chain within their regulations, would be of paramount importance to their business and would lead them on the pathway to success. I'll now pass you over to Craig Jones to explore the topic in greater detail.
Thank you, Steve. So now we'll look at some specific challenges around language labelling. So one of the things we may see arise in our labelling department is the need to include additional language content on our packaging and labelling. Now in real terms, what does that mean for us? We've got additional content to put on, so we're going to need more label real estate. That increase in label size potentially leads us on to our next challenge, the increase in packaging size to accommodate increased text. Of course, increased packaging size means increased packaging costs. And shortly we'll look at a very specific example to show the evolution of packaging and how these are typically realised over time. As we expand into new territories and new markets, what does that mean for the business? Typically it means some packaging redesign, label redesign, box redesign, potentially new label sizes again. So larger boxes to accommodate more content gives us a storage problem. The same product in a larger box means that we need larger warehouses which provide no value add to our organisation. Additional content equals a longer time to market. So we have to go through a process of reviewing and creating artworks and also then having external manufacturers produce some of our packaging materials. Packaging variations, so a number of different packaging styles potentially for different products for different destination markets. An increase in packaging stock, so we've increased our stock holding and our cost overhead. Content change equals disposal of packaging stock. And again, we'll look at that in our real-world example shortly. And finally, a regulatory change, or potentially, that's all of the above. Here's an illustration of some of the language challenges most life sciences organisations are facing and common paths to overcoming them. In this example, a product is labelled in English or a small number of languages to suit the business's current supply chain. A single page or small multi-page insert is included with the product. Over time, the regulatory requirements for the destination markets has evolved. This means some of the existing destination markets are now requesting the product is labelled with their own local language. The labelling team sets about implementing the requirements and addresses the changes by implementing the perceived simplest path. Soon there is a realisation that the required content for some products will not fit into the existing label stock. The label stock size increases, but therefore so must the packaging to accommodate this new label. The old label stock, the pre-printed inserts, and the old packaging are all disposed of. The organisation enters a new geographical territory. The complexity and volume of language and regulatory content increases. The previous process is repeated to update our labelling and packaging assets to suit these new business requirements. for the new territories. Again, the old label stock, the pre-printed inserts and the packaging are all disposed of. Next, the quality department informs us there has been a labelling issue within one of our sales regions. It turns out that the local distributor has been over-labelling our products to meet the local legislation, and this labelling process is uncontrolled and undocumented. Further investigation shows that wrong labels have been applied to our products on multiple occasions. To overcome this issue, a decision is made to ensure the products are labelled correctly at the source for all sales regions. The previous process is repeated again to update our labelling and packaging assets and to ensure all destination markets are catered for. Again, the old label stock, the pre-printed inserts and the packaging are disposed of. Over time, this chosen path has increased the cost of packaging to the organisation. Our product is now distributed in packaging that is unnecessarily large, and we have created an environmental impact through the disposal of unused and obsolete packaging materials. So surely there is a better approach. To do this, we need to overcome a number of specific challenges that surround language labelling. Firstly, language management. As previously highlighted, the handling of the master data and metadata that revolves around written language is a challenge that most life sciences organisations have to address in order to take advantage of a truly global marketplace. Traditionally, there are a number of approaches that have been used. As per our previous slide, a single label that includes every language that could be required is one solution. Producing an English-only label for the product and then including booklets inside, which include translations. Also introducing a secondary packaging step that takes information from a language-neutral primary label and retrieves the layout and data for a subsequent label to be applied over the top or next to the primary label. And finally, again, as per our previous example, a regional labelling where distribution sites apply regional language labels to the product. Although each of these avenues of addressing the problem seems straightforward, there are complexities and costs embedded with each approach. How is the language information captured? What mechanism ensures that the translated content is appropriate to the final product? Where a product is potentially going to any one of 50 countries that may require 30 or more languages, is it an unreasonable assumption that the operator will be able to identify production designation errors, let alone problems relating to technical content of a label in a language that they are not a native speaker of? Solutions to this are various. Having the language information captured as an image and embedded on a label is one approach that addresses the primary issue and also overcomes the lack of Unicode support within legacy applications. But this introduces other issues around dithering of pictures by print devices, version controlling of images, and the size of storage. Capturing the English language content and then using a data structure to control the various translations that each product requires is another method. This provides a flexible approach, but ultimately suffers when large product catalogue is required. Typically, either the base product information is duplicated many times, or the individual records contain so much information that the change control of such records becomes a considerable burden at operational and management levels. How does the language information get reviewed? What processes ensure the individual phrases are checked before they are printed onto the final label? How does the label design tie up with the product regulatory requirements to ensure that only the approved languages are printed on the label? How can the same content be leveraged in any products without having massive duplication of content and increases in translation costs and reviewer time and effort? In the most part, these challenges are addressed by building customer-specific applications that focus on managing language components exclusively, then either building custom integrations or relying on copy and paste to move content from one system to another. In all cases, This indicates additional risk, increased cost of ownership, and further challenges in the future when these requirements inevitably evolve.
So, we now look at the challenge of insert management. As one senior executive reported to us, if the surgeon about to perform an operation on you needs to read the instructions for use before they begin, we recommend you change it on your surgeon. However, the requirement to include IFUs and other inserts with product is not about to disappear. This exercise in liability limitation has become cumbersome, burdensome, and costly for some companies throughout the manufacturing and packaging process. The process of ensuring that inserts are included with specific products has evolved to a level where the inserts are treated as products in their own right and are included on the bill of material for any finished goods. Given that a typical business may choose to secure and hold in stock 3 to 6 months of inventory for each insert, that the inserts themselves are required for each variant of each product, that the insert information itself is subject to change control, review, approval, version control processes, and will involve many languages and the complexities of managing the translated content. It is easy to comprehend why this is such a difficult task and why management of inserts generally is regarded as a current challenge in our industry. When the lead time for change to be implemented and the stock availability of the revised insert is evaluated, the cost of production, whether in-sourced or outsourced, is considered, along with the outlay on stock holding, logistics and warehouse space required for the storing of the printed documents, and the value of the stock write-off once the information on the insert has been revised. The business justification for seeking an alternative supply chain solution for insert management is crystal clear. So, time for our next poll.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the second poll that we will be running in today's session. So please select the answer that is relevant to you and then click on submit. So for your question, which language challenges do you rate as the most important for 2016? So we have language or translation management, just-in-time labeling, support for Unicode character sets, label postponement, multi-page insert or booklet design, country-specific labeling, single source of language data, or approval of language content. So please select the answer that is relevant to you and click on submit. We will give you a few seconds to do so. Okay then, so let's move on to the results. Okay, so can you comment on these results for me, please?
Fantastic. Again, an almost predictable result there. Again, speaking with clients on existing projects, the current needs of the industry, that absolutely country-specific labelling being one of the biggest headaches for those industries we mentioned earlier. So identifying what particular phrases and content is required, particular symbology for certain regions as well if we're exporting and importing goods into different regions. All of those challenges currently facing the industry are certainly things that we can overcome. So again, it would be very interesting to speak to the people who voted for that specific item to get in touch with us directly after the webinar, so we can discuss that in further detail. But absolutely, the latest platforms and latest technology that we'll go on to look at later and best practice will certainly allow us to overcome those challenges. So thank you very much for voting. So let's look at potential solutions to some of the challenges that we've identified. Prism ID has been innovating in the area of just-in-time labelling over the past few years and working tirelessly to support alternatives to the existing paradigm. Label postponement is now a reality. So let's take a look at how this may be implemented. As we manufacture product in-house or purchase product from a third-party supplier, we have an opportunity to label the products from both sources with a label that gives a high level of destination market coverage. In this example, we label the product with the IFUs languages, English, French, Italian, German and Spanish. These manufactured products are labelled during the manufacturing process, and the purchased products are labelled during the inbound or goods in process. Both types of products are subsequently warehoused in our distribution centre. An order is placed in our ERP system for the warehouse products. The ERP is aware of the destination market based on the customer's details and shipping address. As the products are picked and dispatched, a supplementary label containing the necessary additional language is produced and applied if required. In some cases, the original coverage from the IFUs label is sufficient and no additional labelling is required. This same ERP order also triggers the printing of a single language insert that is included with the project packaging at the point of distribution. Now, this may sound like a process prone to risk through human error. Again, back to our first poll question. However, mislabeled scenarios can be overcome by performing a simple secondary verification step. So not only is your labelling system producing your labels, it's also checking that the labels have been assigned and applied to the right product at the right time. As the product is scanned against the order, the system can allow the on-demand language label and printed insert to be scanned and verified via the use of barcodes. Without successful verification, we simply do not allow the product to be shipped via integration with the ERP system. By introducing support for static content documents such as Adobe PDFs as labels within packaging tiers, this has enabled our customers to associate specific documents to specific products in specific languages and to print out a pre-designed and approved insert during the primary packaging process. Where languages are known in advance in a build-to-order scenario, this solution simplifies the process, reduces the stock holding requirement, cost of disposal, and the lead time on changes to virtually zero, and enables a more agile packaging process to deliver additional value to the business. At production print time, the system will generate a document on the fly that is product and language specific that can be printed to any available and appropriate printing device such as a laser printer. By leveraging the ability to produce the inserts just in time, production specific information may also be added to the insert. For traditional inserts, this may not be a requirement for quality. But for quality certifications, certificates of authenticity, and other product documentation, the ability to ensure that the packaging, labelling, and inserts all share lot-specific data is a valuable benefit. The system will also allow approved changes to be immediately available, therefore eliminating the delays while awaiting for new stock of externally sourced items. This also removes any costs associated with inventory and disposal. As the internet continues to play an important part in everyday life, regulatory bodies are increasingly comfortable with allowing end users to utilise the net. E-labelling regulations allow the dissemination of electronic inserts within the published guidelines. Prism embraces these opportunities and can work hand in hand with our content management system to ensure that the product changes that are implemented in operations are reflected on the website immediately. This innovation will ultimately lead to the insert as a printed cost item within the bill of materials becoming a thing of the past.
Next slide is delivering a global label lifecycle management solution. Over the past 20 years, Prism ID have provided label lifecycle management solutions to the life science supply chain using a mixture of knowledge, understanding, and experience. Due to the inherent complexities of the supply chain and a desire for software to support various touch points in manufacturing, packaging, distribution, and warehousing, Present ID have developed solutions that utilize a mix of configurable software alongside customer and custom-specific solutions to ensure that the right product is packed with the right label, showing the right data in the right language at the right time. These solutions have typically leveraged our industry-leading and validatable label lifecycle management platform designed to support electronic records and electronic signatures augmented with customer-specific business processes implementations to generate the end labels. As our product labels include a plethora of data from many external applications, a typical solution will also include customer-specific integrations to such systems as Oracle, eBusiness, SAP, JD Edwards, BPIX, Windchill, and Navision, plus others, to access data already under management by your business. This approach has delivered millions of dollars of annual business benefit to our installed customers by increasing efficiency in manufacturing, implementing just-in-time label production, and eliminating label-related errors and waste within the manufacturing and packaging lines all over the globe.
We are now going to consider the best practices that should be adopted. The end-to-end process requires that the label and insert designs are populated by information and data from a range of data repositories or systems. There are a number of base capabilities that are common throughout any fully compliant system that meets current good manufacturing processes, and clearly one that meets country-specific requirements, such as FDA 21 CFR Part 11 in the US. It makes sense to consider these elements briefly and to understand the principle of what they offer, as disparate systems that use different approaches will not only cause complications, but can increase the operational overhead and risk. In essence, the process needs to be proven, reliable, and robust if the pieces of technology that provide this functionality are able to be reused and are common throughout the system. The user's experience will be enhanced by a standard approach throughout all the processes that take place in the field of data and language management, plus label and insert design. A robust system with a solid foundation will have a common and reusable approach to security, version and revision control, searching, auditability and reporting, and connectivity to other systems. Looking at some other areas in a bit more detail, we have version and revision control. These processes will need to follow a multi-step, three-stage approval process. This process can and should be used wherever possible to provide a standard reusable approach for all content approval. Assets that need to be version controlled would include dictionaries and phrases, template designs, with country-specific content and data. The approach to approvals is important, as it can be based either on a single item or job-based approvals, but the principles are the same. A secure audit trail. All stakeholders will want a common approach to secure historical transaction log, maintaining a complete history of all actions within the labeling enterprise, recording the format design, source master data, and all variable production data. Actions logged against the user, the workstation, and the time and date. This information must be exportable, searchable, and printable, and also provides a source of historic information and the ability to reprint previously printed content. So configurability and access and security. When we consider some of the diverse users requiring access to a system, including multiple departments, regulatory specialists, label designers, and third-party organizations, it is clear that all parties needing access to the system must be able to do so in an unhindered but controlled and well-managed manner. The level of security, flexibility, and ease of administering such a capability is fundamental. Specific tasks must be controlled by user permissions. In essence, if a user does not have rights to undertake certain function, they will be restricted from using that function.
So, the final slide in our presentation today, and it's called Measurable Benefits. This is an actual application story from one of our customers. So to bring all this into perspective and to illustrate the impact and power that the implementation of a Prism label lifecycle management solution brings, one of our customers that implemented the solution to remove inserts from a small percentage of their product catalog recently sent us an analysis of the business value that implementing a print-on-demand solution for destination language labeling and insert generation has delivered to their business. The solution was to introduce a second packaging step in Europe for products that were targeted. This secondary step identified the destination country for the product and allowed the user to print a language-specific insert for the product alongside the printing of a language-specific shipping label. So both entities were printed just in time. By doing this, the customer had two major impacts. One was the elimination of 175 tons of paper from their supply chain per year. The second one was an $8 million annual saving per year, all for printing labels and inserts in the right language at the right time. This demonstrates the value of a properly considered and delivered label lifecycle management solution from Prism ID. So that's the slide deck finished. What we're doing now, we'll move on to the Q&A section.
Thank you, Steve and Craig. So please bear with us while we just collate some of the questions that have come in during the presentation. If you have any additional questions that you would like to submit, please do so now using the questions box in the top left-hand corner. We'll try and answer as many of your questions as possible, but we're providing written responses to all the questions asked during the webinar afterwards too. So thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. So we'll now be answering some of your questions. So for the first one that has come in, do you work with a specific translation company?
I'll take that one. Basically, Prism ID and our products will work with any translation file, and that's from any translation company. We do have partnerships in place with some of the larger known translation houses, such as TransPerfect, Crimson, and KJ International. But basically, our system is being configured to take approved content in translated languages and phrases from any source.
I think also looking to the future with integration to translation companies, we're looking to introduce mechanisms in which translation requirements from your labeling system can be sent directly from within the labeling application through to the translation companies. So this means, again, a single user interface for all labeling activities and an automated interface through to our translation house partners. So I think some very, very interesting things coming through the pipeline from Prism ID.
Okay, thank you very much. And are the character-based languages an issue in relation to labeling?
No. The Prism platform is based on Unicode fonts. And we are very happy to handle any of the global character sets and languages, covering everything from the Western languages down to the symbol-based languages of the Far East, etc. So we can actually have our phrase and translations table set up and quickly switch between several languages on the label based on its destination. So in essence, if it's supported in the world of ISO standards, we can print it.
And I think this really does mean an end to implementing complex character sets using images on labels, as we've seen a number of our customers doing historically. So moving away from that also allows us to add in additional benefits such as automatic justification detection. So for Arabic, having right to left as an automatic setting without the need for any user input from the label designer. So some real improvements for labeling platform, I think, and allows us to move forward with literally any character set, whether it's based on a true type or an open type font that's specific to the customer and that labeling department.
Okay, thank you very much. And your next question is, when having several languages linked to a label, do you run the risk of the fields being clipped or overlapping?
No, this is one of the biggest challenges in language labeling is, for example, a phrase which is in English may consist of 24 characters in length. The same phrase in, say, Italian could be 40 characters in length, and that will have an impact when printed. As we've been working with languages for many years, we've brought in a set of tools which allow the designer at design stage to cycle through all the languages linked to that label. So at design stage, they can see how these largest phrases impact on positional fields, where they overlap, etc. And we can then bring in constraints for languages, so they resize automatically to the field. And where it is infringed, the field will then turn colour to warn the designer that that constraint on that field has been breached. So a good designer, using our software, every phrase can then be accounted for on that language, on that label, when it's released for production. Also, in production, if the field's changed and it breaches it, the label will not be allowed to print. So we don't have that taking place at production, but if it did, there are tools in there to stop any infringed field overlapping with graphics or other fields to be printed, and the warnings will be given and also right back into the audit log. Craig, do you want to add anything to that? Nope. So that's how you go on that one. So we don't have clipping of languages.
Okay, thank you very much. And is it possible to geofence territories to drive the automatic selection of applicable languages?
Now, that's an interesting question. Yes, we can. Actually, using business rules, if we set up the business rules in advance, so if we want to relate certain countries, certain phrases and translations to territories, we can then automatically select what languages appear in that label based on destination. So, for example, if we're going to ship a product into the South American market, we can then automatically select the languages of the Portuguese, the Brazilian subset, Spanish, English, and French. If that same product is going to the Asian market, we can then automatically select the label to carry Chinese, Korean, Japanese, maybe Thai. So we can set up the business rules in advance to make sure that when it changes its territory destination, the languages of that territory, the geofenced area of territories, change automatically. So you're not labeling to a certain country, you can now label to a certain geographical area, which again helps the emerging markets, etc. I think as well, those requirements for country labeling have traditionally been serviced by label designers designing multiple different labels for multiple different regions. It is now possible, using the latest technology offered by Prism, to use the data to control a single label design to service all of those regions. Again, technology has moved on to support these latest requirements.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
And so, for your next question, I would like to know if there is a standard program to prepare layouts. I'm currently using CorelDRAW, but not sure if this program is standard.
So we've come across CorelDRAW historically with some of our clients, absolutely. CorelDRAW, I guess, as a design package, allows you to lay a label out. It is not very good at introducing dynamic content. And dynamic content if we look at variable product master data, so using the same label design for a number of different products, maybe within the same family. It doesn't typically allow us to drive transactional batch data, so lot numbers, expiration dates, which might need to be added in via a different mechanism, maybe through a very simple label package. And really fundamentally, it gives us very little traceability, so it has no version control, auditability, or approval process within the actual application. So what we find actually, although it's good for drawing and designing, it means hopping in and out of the system and using a number of different systems to produce that final label. Whereas operations and costs are reduced if we have a single end-to-end platform that manages everything from the data all the way through the design process, the approvals, the security and the auditing, all the way through to the printed label.
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess we will wrap up there. But as mentioned earlier, we will be providing a written response to delegates of all the questions that we've received. So we hope you've enjoyed the presentation and found it informative. For further inquiries, please visit our website, www.prismid.com, or email us at the address that is on screen now. So you can also follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. So thanks again to everyone, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.